So hi guys, welcome back to our Space in Telugu channel. So అయితే guys, మనం ఇప్పుడైతే అమెరికాలోని స్పేస్ కంపెనీ వాళ్ళు ప్రోగ్రామ్ చేస్తున్న స్టార్లింక్ రాకెట్ ని చూస్తూ ఉన్నాం. సో ఇప్పుడు ఇది ఇంకో 5 minutes లో బయలుదేరబోతుంది. సో దాదాపుగా 6 minutes అన్నమాట. సో అయితే ఇప్పటి వరకు ఖచ్చితంగా దాదాపుగా ఒక 10 రాకెట్స్ ని పంపించి ఉంటారు. సో ఏంటంటే ఇక్కడ ఒక్కో స్టార్లింక్ శాటిలైట్ లో 20 or 60 వెళ్తాయి. సో ఇదేంటంటే ఈ బోట్ ఏంటంటే రాకెట్ ఒక బోట్ మీద ల్యాండ్ అవుతుంది. అక్కడ నుంచి తీసుకువస్తుంది అన్నమాట. ఓకే, ఇంకా 5 minutes and half లో ఉంది. సో ఇంకొద్దిసేపట్లో మనకి రాకెట్ పైకి వెళ్తుంది. సో ఈ వీడియోని ఫుల్గా చూడండి ఖచ్చితంగా. సో చూసేదాన్ని ట్రై చేయండి. ఓకే, ఇంకా గ్యాస్ వీటిల్లో ఇక్కడ కౌంట్ డౌన్ టైం అనేది ఉందన్నమాట. సో కౌంట్ డౌన్ టైం అనేది ఉంది. సో అందుకోసం ఇది కొంచెం లేట్గా అయితే ఉందన్నమాట. సో కౌంట్ డౌన్ అయితే మనకి చాలా వరకు చాలా లేట్తో ఉంది. సో ఇది స్పేస్ కంట్రోల్ సెంటర్ నుంచి. సో చూస్తూ ఉండండి అవర్ స్పేస్ ఇన్ తెలుగు ఛానల్ స్టార్లింక్ ప్రోగ్రామ్.
United States. Earlier this week, the Ector County Independent School District in Texas.
ఓకే గ్యాస్, సో ఇంగ్లీష్లో కూడా వస్తుందన్నమాట. కాకపోతే నేను ఇంగ్లీష్లో పెడితే ఏంటంటే చాలా ఇండియన్స్కి అర్థమవుతుంది. ఇంకో 4 minutes లో మన రాకెట్ అనేది పైకి వెళ్తుంది. సో దీన్ని ఫార్వర్డ్ చేయకండి దయచేసి ప్లీజ్. సో ఫార్వర్డ్ చేయకుండా ఫుల్గా చూడండి. సో ఫుల్గా చూస్తేనే ఒక థ్రిల్ అనేది ఉంటుంది. అంటే డేట్ అయినా కానీ వెయిట్ చేసి అప్పుడు ఆఖరిగా చూస్తే అప్పుడే థ్రిల్ ఉంటుంది. సో వెంటనే ఫార్వర్డ్ చేసి దేన్ని చూస్తే ఏం థ్రిల్ ఉంటుంది కదా. సో అందుకని వీడియోని ఫార్వర్డ్ చేయకండి, చూస్తూ ఉండండి అవర్ స్పేస్ ఇన్ తెలుగు ఛానల్ని. ఓకే గైస్, సో నా ఛానల్ కూడా సబ్స్క్రైబ్ చేసుకోండి. సో ఎందుకంటే ఇప్పటి వరకు నా ఛానల్ చాలా తక్కువ సబ్స్క్రైబర్స్ ఉన్నారు. సో నేను రోజు స్టార్లింక్ ఎన్నైతే బయటకు వస్తూ ఉంటాయో ఎన్నైతే పైకి వెళ్తూ ఉంటాయో అది ఖచ్చితంగా నేను వీడియో పెడతాను. సో అందుకోసం దయచేసి ప్లీజ్. సో దాంతోపాటు మూన్ మీద వాటర్ ఉంది. సో దాని మీద కూడా ఒక వీడియో పెడతాను. ఓకే గైస్, మనకి ఇంకో 3 minutes లో పైకి వెళ్ళిపోతుంది ఫాల్కన్ 9 స్పేస్ ఎక్స్ స్టార్లింక్ రాకెట్. ఓకే గైస్, సో ఇది లెవెల్ 2 అన్నమాట. సో అంటే నైట్రోజన్ లెవెల్ 2. సో ఇంకా ఇక్కడ 2 minutes and 3 minutes పడినప్పుడు లెవెల్ 3 అనేది వస్తూ ఉంటుంది అన్నమాట. ఓకే గైస్,
Right now. Minus 60 seconds. Falcon 9's complete. And there's the LOX load completion call out.
సో అయితే గైస్, సో ఫాల్కన్ 9 గురించి ఇంకొన్ని డీటెయిల్స్ అనేది మనం ఇంగ్లీష్లో తెలుసుకుందాం. సో సౌండ్ పెంచుతున్నాను. సో మన మ్యామ్ మన పక్కన ఉన్న మన మ్యామ్ మనకి ఫాల్కన్ 9 గురించి ఇంకొన్ని అప్డేట్స్ ఇస్తుంది.
Team is tracking no issues on the rocket. Weather is still looking good. We're still keeping an eye out on it, but weather is still looking good for T0, and the range is green for launch.
సో ఇది లెవెల్ 2 అన్నమాట, నైట్రోజన్ లెవెల్ 2.
Coming up here at T-minus 2 minutes. We should be completing LOX loading here shortly. Again, as I mentioned earlier, those white clouds that you see around Falcon 9 is from the venting of the LOX line. And this is normal. There's that call out for stage 2 LOX load complete. Again, those white clouds are normal that you see there on your screen. Just 30 seconds away from Falcon 9 being in startup. And that's when the internal flight computers take over the terminal count.
సో అయితే guys ఇంకొద్దిసేపే ఉంది చూస్తూ ఉంది మా వీడియోని.
And now you can really see that venting of the locks there from the transporter erector. This is to clear out the lines on the TE in preparation for liftoff.
సో అయితే
Falcon 9 to startup. There's that call
సో
out.
కౌంట్ డౌన్
Falcon 9 is in
అందరూ
startup.
పిలిచేదానికి రెడీగా ఉండండి.
We should hear if we are go for launch.
LDs go for launch.
And you heard that the LDs go for launch. So it looks like weather is in our favor today. So at T-minus 30 seconds, let's listen into the terminal count. And
సో
watch
అయితే
as Falcon
అందరూ
9 takes
కౌంట్
our
డౌన్ కి రెడీగా ఉండండి.
Starlink satellites into orbit today. Stage 1 tank pressing for flight.
ఓకే మ్యామ్ మీరు కూడా కౌంట్ చేయండి ప్లీజ్. ఓకే 10 9 8 7 6 5 4 3 2 1 go.
Plus 40 seconds into liftoff, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Pad 40 at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, carrying our Starlink payload out into space. Now we just throttled down the engines in preparation for Max Q, which stands for maximum aerodynamic pressure. This is the largest structural load that the vehicle will see throughout ascent. Should be coming up on Max Q in a few seconds here.
Max Q.
And there's that call out that we just passed through Max Q. In about a minute, we will have 3 events that happen very quickly, one after another. That will be MECO, or main engine cutoff, stage separation, and SES-1, or second engine start 1. And main engine cutoff is where all 9 of those M1D engines shut down to slow the vehicle down in preparation for stage separation, which is when the first stage separates from the second stage. After stage separation is SES-1, or second engine start 1. And this is where the MVAC engine lights up for its first burn and propels the second stage along with the Starlink satellites to orbit. And at T plus 2 minutes, we are about 30 seconds away from those 3 events. Again, that's MECO, stage separation, and SES-1. Again, it's SES-1 because we do have 2 burns of the Merlin vacuum engine on today's mission. We have a beautiful view of the first stage.
Stage separation confirmed.
And there you just watched MECO, main engine cutoff, stage separation, and that second stage engine ignite. We're just about 15 seconds here from fairing deploy, and on your right-hand screen you can see a view of inside of those fairing halves, looking at the Starlink payload as well. And on your left-hand screen is first stage, making its way back to Earth.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And there, as you watch on your screen, that is confirmation that those fairing halves have deployed. And as a reminder, we will be attempting to pick up the fairing halves after they touch down on the water with our recovery vessel, Miss Chief, today. Now, with stage 2 well on its way to orbit, stage 1 is now heading back to Earth and will perform 2 burns on its way down.
Acquisition of signal Bermuda.
The first is the entry burn to assist in slowing the vehicle down as it passes back into the Earth's atmosphere. This will be a 3-engine burn, starting off with the center E9 engine and followed not too long after by 2 additional engines reigniting. Then the second and final burn for the first stage will be the landing burn, which is just a single E9 engine, and that is enough to rapidly slow down the vehicle to allow it to touch down on its landing zone. And again, for today, the landing zone is just read the instructions, which is currently out in the middle of the ocean waiting for this booster to come back.
సో అయితే గైస్, సో ఇప్పటి వరకు విన్నారు కదా స్టార్లింక్ అప్డేట్స్ గురించి. సో ఇలాగే ఇప్పుడు మనకి ఇదంతా శాటిలైట్ అయితే రిలీజ్ చేసేంత వరకు సో నేను వీడియో పెడతాను, తర్వాత వీడియో అనేది ఆఫ్ చేస్తాను. సో అంతవరకు ఉంటుంది అన్నమాట వీడియో, శాటిలైట్ ఆఫ్ అయ్యేంత వరకు. తర్వాత ఇది ఈ స్టేజ్ 1 కిందకి వెళ్ళి ల్యాండ్ అయ్యేంత వరకు కూడా ఉంటుంది. సో ఎందుకంటే చాలా చాలా బ్యూటిఫుల్ వ్యూ అనమాట. సో చూస్తూ ఉండండి అవర్ స్పేస్ ఇన్ తెలుగు ఛానల్. ఓకే, ఇంకొన్ని అప్డేట్స్ మ్యామ్ అయితే ఇస్తుంది.
Entry burn will be trajectory. There's a call out. The vehicle second stage is on nominal trajectory. That entry burn will last about 22 seconds long. And you can see on your left-hand screen the first stage, the grid fins are deployed, but they actually don't start steering until after entry burn. That's because it requires the atmosphere and air to be flowing through those grid fins. Got some really awesome clear views on both the first and second stage. You can see Earth in the background. We're just about 15 seconds or so away from that entry burn on the first stage.
Stage 1 FTS is safe. Stage 1 entry burn 0.
And there you can see the entry burn has begun. And as you saw, the plume started out small and then got larger, and that's because we light up the first single engine and then followed by 2 additional engines on this entry burn for a total of 3.
Stage 1 entry burn shut down.
And entry burn is now complete. As you see, those engines have shut down. So next up, in about a minute or so, will be that landing burn for the first stage. As I mentioned earlier, it will just be the center.
All nominal trajectories.
It will just be the center E9 engine for the landing burn, and that's enough thrust to slow the vehicle down. The M1D engines have 845 kilonewtons, or 190,000 pounds of thrust.
సో అయితే ఇందాక నేను చెప్పాను కదా గైస్, సో రీయూజబుల్ బోట్ ఉంటుందని, రీయూజబుల్ ల్యాండింగ్ బోర్డ్ అని. సో అదే అనమాట ఈ బోట్. సో ఈ బోట్ మీద ల్యాండ్ అవుతుందన్నమాట. తర్వాత దాన్ని మెల్లగా పనుకోబెట్టి తర్వాత వేరే బోట్ మీదకి ఎక్కించి మళ్ళీ స్పేస్ ఎక్స్ సెంటర్కి తీసుకొని వస్తారు. సో ఇది సముద్రంలో ఉంది. సో ఎక్కువగా ఏంటంటే ల్యాండింగ్ ప్రాసెస్లో చాలా చాలా డ్యామేజెస్ జరుగుతాయి. సో అలా జరిగినప్పుడు ల్యాండ్ మీద అలా చేస్తే మనకి కొంచెం ప్రాబ్లం ఉంటుంది. అంటే రెండో రాకెట్ లాంచ్ చేసేదానికి చాలా వరకు డ్యామేజ్ అవుతుంది. సో అందుకోసం ఏంటంటే ఇక్కడ ఈ బోట్ మీద అనేది ల్యాండ్ చేస్తారనమాట. సో కొన్నిసార్లు ఏంటంటే ల్యాండ్ మీద విడిగా వేరే చోట్లలో లాంచ్ చేస్తారనమాట, ల్యాండ్ చేస్తారనమాట. సో ఈసారి అయితే నేను చూపిస్తాను ఒకసారి. సో ఇప్పుడు రాబోతుంది కిందకి. సో ఇంకొద్ది సేపట్లో ల్యాండ్ అవుద్ది. సో ఇంకో 20 seconds 30 seconds ఉంది. ఇద్దరు గైస్ వచ్చేసింది. వావ్, సూపర్. అయితే గ్యాస్ చాలా బాగా ల్యాండ్ అయింది. వావ్, సో నిజంగా చాలా బాగుంది గ్యాస్. సో వావ్, సో చూసారా, ఇదే అనమాట సో ల్యాండింగ్ ఫేస్. సో ఇప్పుడు మా స్పేస్ దీన్ని చూద్దాం. సో ఇది ఇంకా పైకి వెళ్తూనే ఉంది. ఇంకొన్ని అప్గ్రేడ్స్ మన మ్యామ్ ఇస్తాను. సో వాల్యూమ్ పెంచుతాను. సో రాకెట్ సౌండ్ వినాలి కదా.
Cut off one. There's that call out for Seco. We're waiting for confirmation of good orbit here.
Nominal parking orbit insertion.
And there's that call out that we are in a good orbit. So now the second stage is going to coast in this orbit for roughly 35 minutes. So we're going to take a quick break during this coasting time, but we'll leave you with an animation so that you can see where the Starlink satellites are in the coast phase. So we'll see you back here at T plus 43 minutes for the second stage. Hello from SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. My name is Jesse Anderson, and I'm a lead manufacturing engineer here at SpaceX. You're watching a live webcast for our 15th Starlink mission and our 19th mission overall this year. As you may be aware, this is our second attempt at this mission. On Thursday, we stood down due to an issue with the second stage camera, and we just wanted to take the time to re-examine the whole vehicle just in case. Turned out to be a small issue, so we are a go for today's launch, which could be our 100th successful flight of a Falcon rocket since Falcon 1 first flew to orbit in 2008. Starlink is a constellation of satellites that can provide high-speed, low-latency internet all over the globe, particularly in remote or rural areas where connectivity is limited or completely unavailable. As of today, we've successfully launched more than 800 Starlink satellites to orbit. Today, we will be performing 2 burns on the second stage and deploying our 60 Starlink satellites about an hour into the mission. Our satellites have ion thrusters on board that will take them to their final orbit once separating from second stage, but those 2 Merlin vacuum engine burns will get them as close as we can to their final orbit. We're now at T minus 8 minutes and 45 seconds, and all systems are go for an on-time liftoff this morning. As for weather, it's currently a watch item, but at this time we are go for launch. If for some reason we are not able to launch today, we do have a backup opportunity for tomorrow at 11:10 a.m. Eastern Time. And what you're seeing on your screen is a live view of Falcon 9, our 2-stage vehicle that stands at 229 feet or 70 meters tall, which is just a little bit taller than the wingspan of a 747. The booster used in today's launch will be taking flight for the 3rd time. Its first mission was in June of this year for the GPS-3 Space Vehicle 3 mission, and again just last month in September on our 12th Starlink mission. The bottom 2/3 of the vehicle is the first stage, which has 9 Merlin or M1D engines to take the vehicle to the edge of space where it will separate from the second stage and then start its journey back home to Earth. This reusable booster was designed for 10 or more flights with minimal refurbishment between each flight. The drone ship for this morning's mission is Just Read the Instructions, which you can see there on your screen. And this will be the 3rd landing for this booster today if we do touch down on this drone ship today. Today will be the 17th time that we will fly a flight-proven booster just this year, and the 45th reflight of a booster overall. The second stage is sitting on top of the first stage, and it's connected by that black section on the vehicle, which is the composite inner stage, currently housing the second stage's single Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine. That MVAC engine will ignite after stage separation and has about 981 kilonewtons, or about 220,000 pounds of thrust. This very efficient engine will propel the second stage carrying the Starlink satellites to a circular orbit around Earth. Prop loading for Falcon 9 began at T minus 35 minutes, and our fuel is a highly refined form of kerosene called RP1, and we use the liquid form of diatomic oxygen, which is called LOX, as our oxidizer. Currently, our P1 and LOX are almost fully loaded on both stages, and LOX will continue to be topped off right until the last minute of the countdown. And that's because we want to keep that LOX, or liquid oxygen, as cold as possible before T0. At the very top of the rocket is where the payload sits attached to the second stage, and it's housed by that large nose cone structure which you see on your screen right now. This is called the satellite or payload fairing. The fairing will be protecting those Starling satellites from all the aerodynamic loads and heat during ascent until we reach the vacuum of space. As many of you know, normally we attempt to catch our fairing halves, but our recovery vessels have been undergoing some maintenance. With that said, one of our recovery boats, Miss Chief, is en route, and you can see that on your screen, en route to recover the fairing out of the water following splashdown. As for the weather, it does look nice over there in Florida, but we have been keeping an eye out on some thick cloud layers, so we are keeping an eye on weather until T-0, but so far it is looking good for launch today. The vehicle, satellites, weather, and range are looking good for an on-time liftoff this morning. As we continue the countdown, we wanted to share a few recent updates on Starlink. This week, Microsoft announced a long-term strategic collaboration with SpaceX to connect Starlink with their modular data centers as part of Microsoft's Azure cloud computing service. This collaboration could help make internet access and networking capabilities available for customers in remote and rugged environments around the world. Speaking of remote locations, Starlink is making its way to another rural location right here in the United States. Earlier this week, the Ector County Independent School District in Texas announced their participation in a new pilot program to help local students and their families access high-speed, low-latency internet. Similar to other rural communities across the country, many residents of Ector County have limited to no connectivity. This issue was magnified for the school district when COVID-19 forced school building closures earlier this year, as nearly 2 in 5 students in the district do not have access to reliable high-speed internet at home. Starting in 2021, Starlink will connect up to 45 households in the community as part of the pilot program. And as the network capabilities continue to grow, it will then expand service to an additional 90 households in the school district. Our Starlink network is still in its early stages, but if you're interested in receiving future updates on Starlink news and service availability in your area, visit starlink.com. We're currently at T-minus 3.5 minutes from liftoff, and Falcon 9 is heading down the final stretch of the terminal countdown. The first and second stages are almost fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. First stage prop loading will wrap up at T-minus 3 minutes in about 20 seconds here, and second stage will complete at T-minus 2 minutes. And you will see some venting of the LOX out of the transporter erector, or the TE, and that's when the super chilled liquid oxygen mixes with the much warmer ambient air. It does create those white clouds. You can kind of see that on your screen around Falcon 9 right now. At T-minus 60 seconds, Falcon 9's complete. And there's the LOX load completion callout. At T-minus 60 seconds, Falcon 9's autonomous internal flight computers will take over the terminal count. And this is what we call startup. Basically, that means that the rocket is in charge of making the decisions as long as the launch director is go for launch. And at this time, the Starlink payload continues to be healthy. Falcon 9 team is tracking no issues on the rocket. Weather is still looking good. We're still keeping an eye out on it, but weather is still looking good for T0, and the range is green for launch. Coming up here at T-minus 2 minutes, we should be completing LOX loading here shortly. Again, as I mentioned earlier, those white clouds that you see around Falcon 9 is from the venting of the LOX line. And this is normal. Complete. There's that call out for stage 2 LOX load complete. Again, those white clouds are normal that you see there on your screen. Just 30. So 30. 30 seconds away from Falcon 9 being in startup. Again, that's when the internal flight computers take over the terminal count.
ఓకే గాయ్స్,
And now you can really see that
సో
venting of
వీడియో
the
అయితే
logs
ఇంతవరకు
there
చాలు.
from
సో
the
ఇది లైవ్
transport
చాటింగ్ అనమాట.
erector.
సో లైవ్
To
అనమాట
clear out
గైస్
the
వీడియో.
lines on the TE in preparation for liftoff.
ఓకే గాయ్స్, సో బాయ్.
Falcon
సో
9 is in
అందరికి
startup.
బాయ్ గాయ్స్.
There's that call out. The Falcon 9 is in
వీడియో
startup.
అయితే కంప్లీట్
In about
అయిపోయింది.
10 seconds here.